and welcome to the AV Forums podcast for the week beginning Monday the 25th of May. And joining me on this edition, Steve Withers.
Let me tell you, after a hard day of looting and pillaging, there's no greater city than Gomorrah, except maybe Sodom.
Kaz Harlow.
Ants.
And Ed Selly.
All right, I'll kill them all.
And welcome back. We're live streaming once again, so thanks for joining us if you are watching us live on YouTube. And also the audio version of the podcast is here as normal as well. So thank you very much for listening in. We're going to have a Q&A section again for your movie and hardware questions. We're going to have that during the show, not at the end, because at the end we're going to be talking about The Rock, and Steve's already getting wet about that one. I'm surprised he's wearing a jumper, actually. I thought you'd be getting lubed up for it.
Well, I don't have to use it. I don't get lubed up on the top part of me, Phil. It's the bit you can't see.
I
want to worry about.
I really don't want to know. So yeah, we're discussing the best and worst of the Rock movies towards the end of the podcast. And also, just remember that to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're here. It really does help us. It helps the channel get found on searches and so on. It means it brings more people in to the podcast and to the channel. So if you're not subscribed yet and you want to see the latest video podcasts as well as our video reviews, then click the bell, as Steve always likes to say, for notifications. You'll be notified every time there's a new video published. Also,
and it does work.
It does work, yeah. Have you? Oh, good job you're here. And you can also subscribe to the audio version through the usual podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. And if you appreciate us, the forums, the editorial, the video podcasts and everything else that we do, then you might want to consider giving a donation. We launched a Patreon campaign on patreon.com/AV Forums this week. So if you want to support us on a regular basis, then you can head over there and sign up. If you're looking to make maybe a one-off, then you can visit us at streamlabs.com/AV Forums. And of course, you can send us a YouTube super chat, and that guarantees that your question, whatever it may be, and it can be about anything, we will answer that as well. Well, the team will answer that
within the limits of the law.
Yes, obviously. I mean, but anyway, that's a super chat, so you can do that as well. And if you feel inclined to support us, like I say, it does help the channel. It also helps us add new features to the website. It helps us improve the speeds and features and editorial content and news and videos and all that kind of thing. So thank you very much if you have donated or are thinking about it. Thank you. Right, we need to move on. And once again, we need to thank our frontline workers out there who are still working incredibly hard. Things have gotten much harder for a lot of them, especially frontline workers that are working in retail and other places where I'd imagine that traffic has gone up as new retailers have opened and so on, and more people are having to go to work and work on the front line. It is appreciated. Thank you very much for doing that from everybody on the podcast here. We really do appreciate everything that you are doing at the moment. And competitions.
Yeah,
we're cracking on here. So Kaz, current competitions for us, please.
Yep, we win a copy of Snowpiercer on Blu-ray. That closes 23rd of June. Highly recommended. Win a copy of 1917 on Blu-ray. That closes 16th of June. That's also well recommended. Win a copy of The Grudge on Blu-ray. Closes 16th of June. Copy of The Specialists on Blu-ray. That's Eureka's latest release. That's 10th of June. And Throwdown also from Eureka on Blu-ray. That's 9th of June. Win a copy of The Boys Season 1 on Blu-ray. That closes 9th of June. And Sea Fever on Blu-ray, 2nd of June. The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse on Blu-ray. That closes 31st of May. And A Fistful of Dynamite on Blu-ray. That closes 29th of May. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK.
Okay. Any previous competition winners, Kaz?
We've got loads. I've finally got some prizes in, and I've been dishing them out. We haven't always got complete prizes. I only got a couple of the Criterion ones, but I managed to get some out, so that's really good news. We got Nathan won Rio Grande on Blu-ray. Jens won Preacher, The Final Season on Blu-ray. Red Bull Master won Jumanji, The Next Level on Blu-ray. And Shotokan 101 won Criterion's February titles on Blu-ray. I'll get them all out to you as soon as possible.
Okay, well done. Congratulations to everybody that has won in the competitions. And if you haven't won, then go and enter. There's lots there to win on disc at the moment. Right, so cracking on with the podcast. What have we been up to this week, Steve?
He's been blowing his nose.
You picked the wrong time to ask me that question. Blow my nose. What have I done this week? Not a lot, actually. I mean not a lot. It's been quite nice weather, so I spent a lot of it lazing around in the garden, and doing a bit of work, but not as much as I should have. And yeah, that's about it, really.
God,
okay.
Living the dream.
Yeah. So
well, you know what? For me, this is the dream.
Fair enough.
Okay. Anything catch your eyes in terms of news and so on? And when I say news, I don't mean people coming up to Durham to visit. I mean actual AV news.
Well, there's been a few things that I've obviously have surfaced this week. First of all, iFi were laying out their plans for September. Obviously, I'm not even sure that. Well, it depends on what happens in Germany, but certainly at the moment you can't hold large-scale gatherings, so it was never looking likely. But now it appears that they've decided to go for a more boutique experience. Well, no, aren't there going to be some invited people?
Yeah, there's going to be some invites. That I think it's on a stage, and they're going to bring out product. Different companies bring out product and demonstrate their what it is that they are launching and so on. That
I
is
tell you what,
I
those
think the format's
hazmat
going to be.
suits are going to really slow those promo girls down.
Well, I mean,
quite significantly.
The thing is, I mean, even if I got an invite, and it is invite only, I can sit at home and watch all that. If they're just going to be presenting stuff on stage and so on, and there's no need to physically be there. If they're not running the proper show, and they can't run the proper show, and even then, if you fly over there, Steve, you've got 14 days isolation.
Yeah, I
that you
mean,
need to do.
obviously, I'm not going. No one's going. Even if they invited me, I would be unwilling to go. I mean, let's be honest. For the next 18 months, I'm not going to any press events, trade shows, anything.
18 months?
Yeah, at least. If I can string it out for 2 years, all the better.
Okay, as a statement of intent, I admire that. I suspect that might prove a binding issue.
To anyone who wants to invite me to something, I'm doing anything else.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Noted. I mean, to be honest, unless I can go to a hall full of washing machines, there's no magic to iFi, is there? So
Getting food cooked by a Michelin-starred chef is always a nice little treat if you go downstairs.
I just like the washing machines.
But anyway, it's not going to happen. The thing they're going to do is there'll be a handful of people in the halls. They're going to show off products. They're going to get companies in, and that is going to be about as much as they can do, which is a shame because it's normally a big event. It's normally a big public event. And I think it's the only big major consumer electronics show that is still open to the public. Most of the other shows around about the world are trade only, and you need to be either a member of the press or a member of the trade to get into them. So it is a shame for the show. It'll just have to continue over to next year, and then they might have double the white goods to sell next year.
I hope so. I mean, to be honest, the irony is, of course, that whilst we've had talks from people and television sales of things that hold up quite well in pandemics, the number of washing machines that will have given out over this trying quarantine period, and people are crying out for the latest information on just what they can get out of clean goods. I just it's an opportunity lost. But yeah, equally, I'm in the same as you guys. Even if I was invited along, I wouldn't be rushing. So not least because, as you say, the 2-week lag before being able to attend is quite trying for schedules. So I mean, I suppose I could try and do an earphone group test in a hotel, but otherwise,
wouldn't you presume you have to do 14 days of quarantine in Germany and then 14 days when you get back? So
well, it looks like that might happen because France have thrown their toys out the pram today as well and said, well, if you have to do 14 days going into England, you have to do the same coming into France. So you can see everybody doing that. So yeah, it would have to be 14 days quarantine, 14 days when you come back. So
I'd recommend holidaying in the UK if possible. That's the big if right now. If possible, just holiday in the UK. Looks like weather's going to be all right. I looked at the forecast for the next 2 weeks. Yeah. I don't know about up north, Phil, but certainly down south, it's going to be nice.
Well, seemingly Durham's nice for a holiday.
Yeah. If your mum's birthday or your wife's birthday, that's where you want to go, apparently.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So Ed, talking about white goods, you haven't been using white goods. You've been using the black goods.
I have. Yesterday, I spent 9 hours cooking a chili, and it was brilliant. I say I got the barbecue up and running weekend before. It was a bit of a test run last weekend. I just cooked a chicken. This time I thought time to do an all day job. So I started the night before, obviously, prepped some bits and bobs, and then sorted myself a chili. Got it on at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was done by about 7:20 in the evening. And you think, well, what on earth is the point of that? Well, it does weird. If my foreground goes bananas, the cat is now very close to my face. So no, it's been brilliant. I used lean diced beef, and by the time that you've done 9 hours or so of cooking, there's no such thing as the tomatoes or the beef or the chorizo or any of the active ingredients. They have just become chili, and it's awesome. I mean, it was volcanically hot. I misjudged that slightly. I mean, the standing thing is it should be too hot for you to eat, or rather, the tomato base should be too hot for you to eat before it goes into the barbecue, because 9 hours will reduce that somewhat. It was still pretty damn lively. I'm glad I had sour cream and guac on hand for that. Otherwise, I this morning, this is a niche brag because it's a bit specialized, but I did a full equipment changeover for review this morning. So that involved getting a lot of existing stuff back into its boxes and getting some fresh stuff out of its boxes. It's a Krypton factor exercise. There's an uncanny blend of physicality, dexterity, and just general faffing, which means that you try and avoid doing it. That's why I tend to do it twice a month rather than on a routine basis. But that's all done. And then I've been continuing to try and work like Steve. I've been negotiating with the lease car people because there's been some fun with my lease car. I won't tire you with that right now. But I'm beginning.
When are you likely to get it?
I don't know. It's cursed. It comes down to some now.
When did your lease start?
It hasn't. This is part of the problem. And because the lease didn't start before March the 31st, the car incurs a substantial VED increase because it's possibly not the most environmentally friendly vehicle that has ever strode together. I mean, obviously, compared to Phil's, it's a lawnmower. But
is your previous lease car gone?
No, that's still with me, and I'm still now paying handsomely for that. So yeah, that's all by the by. I watched Hobbs and Shaw last night. I hadn't seen it before. It was good. I didn't have to think for 2 hours and 20-something minutes, which is always a relief. And yeah, in terms of things that have caught my eye, this is an interesting one because we've covered one or two iFi products before. They've mainly been digital, but they have launched the iPhono 3. Now, as the name suggests, it's not their first phono stage. They've done phono stages before in their Black Label range, and it's I need to choose my words carefully on a live video podcast. Its measured performance was phenomenal, and it didn't necessarily always quite live up to the on-paper expectations. But it appears that this is a refinement. It's been through a fine-tooth comb, and hopefully this is going to now deliver on the promise that the actual design has had for quite some time. And given the quality of some of the iFi stuff I've been looking at recently, yeah, this could be quite something. And turntable use, it's ticking up on the forums. It's still holding up nicely everywhere else. So you might think this is fringe, but no, I think this has got some validity to it as well.
All right, good stuff. Kaz, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Yes, I had some. Well, I had some bad news recently, so I've been dealing with that. I had a socially distant funeral, which I went to, which was interesting in the current climate. But I guess we all get touched by it. And I've enjoyed taking a brief break from streaming titles and watching everyone else endure the some of the things that I normally have to go through. So it's been quite pleasant sitting back and watching the fallout. Not only of having to watch these things, but then interesting reading some of the comments that come back after you have watched them. But yeah, it's been interesting times. But yeah, I've been following a lot of the news that's going on, and I have to say it's the least priority at the moment, but I like to distract myself with it. I can't see what's going on with Tenet and what's going on with returning to cinema, and of course the latest thing is
did you notice
what's going on with the
didn't have
Oscars.
A date on it?
Yeah, exactly. No one's
like the
committing
teaser
to
had
this.
a date.
Yeah.
July 2020. The new trailer just says coming to cinemas.
Yeah,
at some point.
And they've announced about the Oscars might be postponed. They can't find enough movies to qualify for the Oscars, even under the ambit of films that would have been released in the cinema had they had a release. I do find it interesting. I know some friends of mine would be eager to get to the cinema just to get out of the house, I think. But I can't imagine going there wearing a mask.
You see, I'm disappointed that the Oscars has been affected. It's looking like it's going to be sort of knocked on the head, because this was the year that TikTok was going to clear up.
Based on films that had actually been released, things like Bloodshot and Birds of Prey were really in with a chance of best film because nothing else,
because they'd been released.
The Invisible Man was going to walk it this award season.
It was going to be an interesting.
That's actually quite a good film.
Sorry, hang on a second. I just need to. Just because people are probably looking at the background rippling.
I do love the fact that we can finally see your back garden, Ed.
You can't.
I've been waiting to see it. It looks beautiful.
No, that was the picturesque Barnard Castle. But no, this is the issue. He's lovely, but he's very in your face. So yes, that's.
Where's the outside?
Where's the outside?
No, why isn't he outside like any decent cat?
This honestly, this cat is 3 and he sleeps 19 to 20 hours a day. And when he's not asleep, he sits with me. He doesn't move terribly fast.
My cat's like 5 or 6 now, and she's outside torturing mice.
Yes, I know. My parents have got a very active cat as well. This is not one of them. He's
like owner like cat, I suspect.
Although, as I say, other than the nightly moth hunt. And no, the comment that's just come up is that it's not massive. Trust me when I say my parents have got.
Oh, wait till she call him. Yeah.
If this continues to the point where I don't know, we can actually socialise. I'll do a video podcast down at my parents, and I'll just have him
starring Colin. Yeah,
starring Colin is all we could ask for. And also someone asked what the background is. Well, this background is the picturesque and very lovely Barnard Castle, which has been in the news today because it's lovely.
It's nice to go and visit there.
So we're told. You're not supposed to go and visit it, but it would appear that if you feel it's imperative, you can. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. There was something about the Snyder cut as well, Justice League.
Oh yeah, I'm actually. Oh yeah. So I'm sorry to just hop on that. I'm not enthusiastic about that at all. I know I'm going to get shot down for this because everyone's really hating on it, but I am thoroughly up for this. Yeah, I have to say that I think that his director's cuts of his previous films are much better than the theatrical production company cuts. And I do think he has a problem with turning in a film that is 2 hours. It's someone on the forums, Sam Crow, or S. Crow, I think his moniker is. But he commented that Snyder just can't be relied upon to turn in a 2-hour film. And so he turns in a 3-hour film, and the studio just want to deliver 2 hours worth of good movies. And as a result, they cut out everything that makes the film coherent and just deliver like the headlines and the best bits. And so his films are better when they're the full director's cut version at home. So I can't wait for this. Unfortunately, I will have to wait for it because it's HBO Max. And what on earth does that mean? I mean, will it come to Sky? Will it come to Now TV?
Well, if it comes to Sky, it'll be unwatchable. So basically, the best bet for us is that we get a disc release as well. That's what I'm hoping.
Unless Sky launch HDR.
I'm not lost on this. Justice League is quite.
Oh, lovely segue.
Nice try there, Kaz. But Ed just spoiled it.
I know. Just humour me on this. Justice League. I haven't seen it because I don't watch films. But it's long and bleak. And you're excited
Justice
about
League
a version
isn't long and bleak.
No,
That's
it
the
isn't
problem
long.
with it. It's short and
Yeah.
colourful.
Yes, and it should
I
be
want
long
a
and bleak.
4-hour long
so
and bleak
you're
version.
depressed at the colour and vibrancy, and you'd like that sucked out on something a bit more joyless.
They wanted to make an Avengers, so he
hired Joss Whedon.
Yeah, he had a death in the family. Snyder had a death in the family. He was a bit distracted, understandably, and they decided to get Joss Whedon in as the man to do these things, because that's what he does. And he turned in a very colourful Avengers-esque romp, which made absolutely no sense and was very poorly stitched together and had a ridiculous CG mouth on Henry
In
Cavill.
fairness to Joss Whedon, none of that was his fault. He had to turn around. The film shot was in the can. There was an edit in February, March of 2017, was it? And then, obviously for unfortunate reasons, Zack Snyder had to leave the project, although I suspect there was more to it than that. I think he probably got the heave-ho. And then they brought in Joss. So he had about 6 months in which to reshoot a large chunk of the film. Only about 30% of the film that was released was actually shot by Snyder. So we reshot 70% of the film. They had a very short post-production schedule. The effects were very ropey. But, I mean, he did the best he could with what he had to work with. But the results were patchy, to say the least.
Yeah, and he had Henry Cavill's moustache from Mission Impossible Fallout. Oh, I can still remember seeing that and thinking, is something wrong here? What's happening?
I thought that the whole way through watching the film, because it was obvious that there was huge chunks missing. It was, It made no sense narratively what was going on. So,
plus he also dialed up the contrast to make it less dour and moody. But the thing is, the costumes were designed to be seen in a certain lighting.
Yeah,
and as soon as you dialed up the contrast, the bat suit looked awful.
It did look really, really bad.
You can't just. I mean, when they design films, they don't just design it and then think, stick any old light on it. It's designed to look a certain way under certain conditions. That's the whole point of testing. And they're doing tests and this sort of stuff. And the results were appalling, unfortunately. Look, I mean, it's not. I mean, Warner's have got some form on this, haven't they? They did the Donner cut of Superman 2. I mean, there were different reasons for that, but I mean, if they're going to put 20-30 million into this to finish the effects and everything else, then brilliant. I'll buy it if it becomes available on disc.
Yeah. Will you pay $1 million for it?
Yeah. So Kaz did a fantastic segue a few minutes ago now. But anyway, what was that segue, Kaz? We'll give you another go.
Steve was commenting that it'll be unwatchable on Sky, and I just dropped in there. Well, you never know. Maybe Sky will launch HDR.
Yeah.
Which is the news this week. I mean, they're only 10 years too late, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
but
I think, do you have Sky, Kaz? Do you?
I have Now TV.
All right, so you have
Sky,
no.
But,
so I've got Sky Q, and haven't watched it in weeks, to be honest with you.
Well, there's no live sports, so that one's out.
Well, exactly. There's no live sports. Movies, I've seen most of the movies because I saw them at the cinema last year or towards the end of the year. So, and like I've said on a number of occasions, I think the 4K quality, the UHD quality is pretty poor. The compression that they're using. And I've made a few complaints about how Sky are no longer at the cutting edge when it comes to TV and so on. I mean, they were in the 90s. The amount of things that they did and introduced changed the TV landscape. But it seems that maybe it's the fact that all the money now goes into trying to secure Premiership rights. And subscriptions go up mainly just to pay for the football. It seems to be that's the business model now, and everything else starts to suffer with it. So yeah, they're going to launch HDR. The rumor is 27th of May. There's 2 new channels starting on Sky. The rumor is that they're going to announce it there. Conflicting reports, because this is all coming from things being leaked online. A couple of news stories on Forbes. John Archer did a bit. I've seen another few bits and pieces on forums elsewhere. Nobody has the exact details. Conflicting reports in terms of which boxes it'll work on. I can guarantee you, knowing Sky, that if you were an early adopter and you paid the most amount of money for your Q box, it's not going to work. That's
so
normally the way
to pay to upgrade to a new one.
That's normally that's it. They'll take your money and give you another box. I mean, now what they do now is that the boxes that I have here still belong to Sky. you rent the boxes, and when you finish your subscription, the boxes go back to Sky. So the box I have here is the latest 4K 1 terabyte box. So I'm assuming that will be fine and it will work. I think the only ones that are really going to struggle are going to be the old 1 terabyte boxes, like I say, the early adopters and so on. I am guessing at that, though, because nobody has come out with any firm answers yet. But there's a press release coming out this week. It'll happen on Wednesday. I intend to watch on Wednesday to see what is in HDR. Now, if it's broadcast, it will be HLG. That is the...
Yeah, and again, I was going to ask that question, but I'm assuming
this is me assuming and making assumptions, but it just makes sense that HLG is the broadcast standard. If it's over the air, if it's live football or whatever, it will be HLG. I don't see it being anything else. We don't know in terms of the apps on the Skybox, because obviously you have Netflix on there, if that will also be HDR and if that'll be HDR10. And the movie channels, we don't know if the movies will be HDR10. I would assume that would be the case. But again, I'm just making assumptions on the technology that's there and what Sky are likely to do. So I will put a piece up on Wednesday once I've had time to have a play about and actually view some stuff. If they're using HLG, it'll look great, because everything I've seen with HLG and the way that HLG works, it really is a nice looking system. It adds the high dynamic range in there. It gives you nice specular highlights and good blacks, so it should look good. HDR10 on pre-recorded stuff, not really sure how that's going to look. That'll be the interesting thing, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what comes out in HDR to start with, because I think it'll be very patchy. Well, there's no live sport anyway.
Yeah, it's not going to be sport, is it? So it's going to have to be movies or shows.
It's going to be movies, and I think the reason they're going to announce it is that the channels are documentary in nature. Documentary, not so much, but nature, absolutely. For HDR, and Sky have been using the same cinematographers and so on that the BBC use for their Planet Earth and that kind of thing. So I'm sure it'll look spectacular. So we'll wait and see. I'll keep an eye on the forums as well and see how many members there who were early adopters are having issues and so on. And hopefully the press release should give us more information on what boxes will be compatible and how you can update your system.
That won't be in a press release, because that will create high havoc. it will be.
It's the number one question being asked, and if their press department are any good whatsoever, then there should be a note for editors at the bottom that tells you exactly what is compatible and not, or a link to a website that will tell you, because the BBC managed to do that. They have a link to all the TVs that are compatible and so on. So we'll just have to wait and see.
BBC,
but anyway,
it's I mean, obviously people can cancel their TV licenses, but I suspect that choose my words carefully. I suspect that it will not be an automatic thing that this works, this doesn't, because that's just far too simple, far too easy.
Yeah. Well, what might work for them is the fact that sport is down at the moment. So it gives them an opportunity to add it in incrementally, rather than having a full weekend of live games and lots of opportunities for everything to go wrong. They can start with adding in the HDR10 stuff for pre-recorded, and then sport will start to happen again within the next few weeks. June, certainly, for Premier League is supposed to get up and running again. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting.
Another COVID case for Bournemouth today. I just can't see it. I mean, obviously, if they feel there's a moral imperative, then they can do what they like. Probably have fans along as well, but we'll see. It seems a mess at the moment. So,
yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But like I say, it might give Sky the opportunity to roll this out in a fashion that's not going to cause any issues in terms of things suddenly going wrong and them looking bad because something's gone wrong. So it might actually work in their favour. And I'm just quickly looking just to see if there's any questions on it.
I see Gordon Wheeler. This is going to tie in with the next news story, actually, because he's asking, should film studios go for streaming services on some of the big releases? And interestingly, Gordon, yesterday morning I watched The Lovebirds on Netflix, which was very enjoyable, worth checking out if you want to see it. That was supposed to come out in cinema. And Netflix picked it up instead from Paramount. So it was a Paramount film. It was an actual Paramount movie designed for the cinema, made for the cinema, that couldn't go to the cinema for obvious reasons, and Netflix picked it up. And then Apple, who obviously have been producing some really good shows. I'm really enjoying Defending Jacob. But to have limited content, they've been going on a spending spree apparently, buying older shows and also buying some recent films that again couldn't open. So apparently they bought The Greyhound, which is a World War II movie about a naval destroyer with Tom Hanks. I think it's a true story, in fact, that was meant to come out about now, I think. And they bought streaming rights for that for Apple TV Plus. So I don't think we're going to see any of the really big movies like Tenet or Black Widow, that sort of stuff, going to streaming. But definitely a lot of the smaller stuff is going to hit streaming, partly because if you're going to open a film at the cinema, whichever film goes first, whatever that might be and when that might be, that's going to be a test case, isn't it? And you want to do it with something that's going to get people to the cinema. So it's going to have to be a really big movie. Smaller stuff that just wouldn't get people out anyway. It's better off just going straight to streaming. So in answer to your question, yeah, lots, but not the really big blockbustery stuff.
There's still the optimism. I mean, obviously, there's also the sunk cost. It can't be, you can't wish it away. At the moment, with the serious stuff, there has to be the optimism that there will be some form of getting the money back for it. At the moment, move to streaming service, notwithstanding that it's possibly seen as an admission of defeat. Just the loss of revenue is too much to stomach at the moment. But I guess if depending on how things go, if it's difference between some and no revenue, then it becomes a different calculation.
It's how long can you wait? Sorry, Phil.
No, I agree with you, Kaz. And again, you're talking about movies, I think 100 million and below. They're going to want to recoup their money, and they'll do that through streaming. Over 100 million budget, and most are around about 250 million, Steve, for some of the big tentpole.
Oh yeah,
even more than that. Then
yeah, they're 250. I mean, I think Infinity War and Endgame combined cost $750 million to make. Yeah. No, that's not even including marketing costs. So yes, the big stuff definitely not, but 100 million or below movies, which incredibly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is a cheapie. Things like Artemis Fowl, which was meant to come out this summer, that's now going to be shown on Disney Plus, I think, in June. So and also like Rise of Skywalker hit Disney Plus quicker than it would have normally. Frozen 2 has in the States, although for some reason it's still not available here, which is annoying. I guess that might have something to do with some outstanding Sky deal.
Yeah, who knows? This could be the start of a new golden age of stop motion. It's cheap, socially distanced, responsible filmmaking. I mean, Nick Park is the single greatest name in future cinema right now, because it's just as long as there's.
There was a stop motion TikTok thing done by Leica Studios, which was very, very clever and very funny. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
No, I haven't. I'll have a look.
Yeah. Phil Singh mentions in the comments section, I can't wait for cinemas to open again so I can start reusing my monthly subscription, which is currently on hold. It's interesting to see that opinion, because certainly my feeling at the minute is the cinemas are not really somewhere I would be inclined to visit at this moment in time if they were to reopen in the next few weeks.
Welcome to my entire life.
Well, cinemas are pretty unpleasant places to go, even in normal circumstances.
Yeah.
The idea of going to the cinema, I mean, obviously, I'm like you, Phil, I'm lucky to have a home cinema, and therefore it's less of an issue. But I can't say, even though I would normally, certainly pre-COVID, I would have rushed out to see Tenet on the big screen. I think I'll wait for the disc now. Basically.
Right. I long to go back to the cinema because, yeah, you say they're not nice places and so on, but if you have got a nice cinema near you, and I can't complain with the Metro Odeon that I go to, it's got a nice IMAX screen. It's got really, most of the screens are nice and big. It's still an event, and yeah, I've got a home cinema and so on, but sometimes there's just something about being in a large room, that large space, and watching a film with other people in that large space. Now, it can get annoying, people, eating behind you or whatever, or kids coming in or whatever, but generally, it's a social event, and I do miss going to the cinema. I've got to say, although, they got more money out of me than I got out of them with my Odeon Limitless card, I did enjoy going to the cinema during the week, round about tea time, just going along, parking up because I knew I'd get parked, going and see the latest film, and out again before it got dark, and I miss that. So I don't feel I'm like you. I'd like to get back to the cinema, but at the moment I'm just not 100% sure about that. What about you, Kaz? Because you tend to spend most of your time watching TV and discs.
One of my best friends, the only way we generally see each other, because we're moved, an hour or so apart, is when we meet up and go and see a film, have a meal, go and see a film. And I'd love to do that again, because I miss doing that. We used to do it almost every week or every other week. But I can't imagine what it would be like to do it now. So everything you describe about it is everything I would want to return to. So I would like my popcorn. I'd like to sit comfortably in the center where I like sitting. I'd like to be free to go and leave, depending on how much I had to drink. And I'd like to enjoy it. I don't know, without having to maybe wear a mask or without anything else.
Hard sweet popcorn wearing a mask. I'm gonna throw that one right out there.
Yeah, but I've worn these masks around when I've gone out, and I understand that the prevailing intention behind it is to be conscious of other people around you. I'm not going to enjoy sitting in a movie cinema wearing one for 2 hours. I just watch it at home. I've got a good setup. There's no reason for me to go and see films that I would have seen day one. I was sitting there going, am I going to see Tenet or am I going to see Top Gun 2 first?
Neither.
And now I'm sitting there and going, if they release Tenet in July, I won't be there. And I'm okay with that, because I don't think I'd enjoy that experience. The experience that you described, Phil, I want that. When we get that back is a real uncertainty for me.
Yeah.
Ironically, I was socially isolating in cinema as well before it was cool. I hate it when there's other people there.
Well, that's why I used to go at the times I used to go, Ed, because it was guaranteed that it'd be you and 5 others.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which is fine during the week. Yeah. But I also enjoyed, like, the big tentpole movies. I did enjoy going on opening day.
Yeah.
And seeing it with a big audience, because
it
just changes the film. It changes.
Even before they were vectors for an unpleasant disease. When I meet a person, that's fine. People are terrible. I don't, and the idea of paying lots of money to be sat silently around these people. No, I mean, obviously, I say that at the same time, I fervently want to go to the pub.
Yes, full of horrible people.
Yeah, but I can drink.
Drunk people who are even worse.
Well, yeah, but they usually. I find that alcohol's a great leveler under these circumstances. I mean, I know that there are certain cinemas you can drink in, but then obviously you run into problems with breaking the seal and all the rest of it, and that's not.
So Ed, are you saying that if Wetherspoons was the only pub to open, you'd go and drink in a Weather? No, I thought you'd draw the line somewhere.
No, there are lines in the sand that have to be drawn.
Yeah.
It's as I say, it's maddening, but we all have our crosses to bear. So
I mean, there are certain films that benefit from being watched with the audience. That's obviously comedies and horror films. They're a communal experience, and therefore, they're. I mean, like, I think we've had this conversation before, but seeing Aliens and the Marble Arch in London, the Odeon Marble Arch with a packed house, was one of, if not the best cinema going experience I've ever had, where the crowd were really, really into it.
Well, I saw the Trainspotting opening day Edinburgh premiere in Edinburgh, and
I suppose the only example for that for me was Black Hawk Down at the Mile End Genesis, where it became abundantly clear that the vast majority of people in the cinema with us were not rooting for the Americans. It was really exciting, really quite atmospheric.
A friend of mine had a similar experience going to see True Romance at the cinema, and sat in front of him were about 5 Sicilian men who were very pleased when the Sicilian speech started, and not quite so pleased towards the end of it.
Daniel, what about movies that benefit from being watched drunk? I don't understand. That's all movies.
Yeah, it is. If you're talking about
I don't
Ed,
discriminate.
Yes.
No.
But Gustavo asked, "Have you been to Dolby Vision Cinema?" Yes, I've been to the AMC Town Square, as has Steve, in Vegas.
I was going to say not a public one. I've been to Dolby Vision
Yeah,
Cinema.
I've been to Dolby's one
Soho
as well,
Square.
private. one in Soho, which is the best one I've ever been in because they don't have health and safety issues to deal with. So there's no exit signs. There's no lights on during the performance. When it goes black, it actually goes black. I mean, a lot of AV Forums members had the opportunity last year at a Philips event to go along to Dolby HQ, and you got to see a demo in the cinema, and that was one of the most impressive things of the whole evening. Great seeing the grading suite, seeing the TVs, but it's actually sitting in the Dolby Cinema. When it goes black, it goes black. It is fantastic, and it's about the only time I've actually seen HDR on a screen in wide color gamut that looks how it should look. When you go to other cinemas like the one in Vegas, and like I mean, I haven't been to Leicester Square yet, or even the one in Leeds. There's one in Leeds, one in Manchester, one in Birmingham, and Leicester Square in London. So there's 4 altogether at the moment. I haven't had an opportunity, but I want to try and go to Leeds. I was talking to Dolby about doing that because I was actually going to go and see Hisense in the morning and then go and see Dolby in the afternoon. And we were trying to get that planned. And then, of course, things changed that quite quickly. But yes, I have been in a Dolby. The event happened. But yes, I've been to Dolby Vision Cinema. We saw it was Welcome to the Jungle.
Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, yeah, which was fantastic.
And when those drums started,
you could feel them in your chest, couldn't you?
That was something else. It really was impressive, and I think it was an old IMAX screen as well, which because there was 2 next to each other. So I think that at one point they had 2 IMAX screens, and they changed one to the Dolby Vision screen, Dolby Cinema. And the thing was, they kept it at the IMAX ratio. There was no masking or anything like that, so it was a massive screen as well, massive sound system. Leather recliners, and I was saying to Steve, because we'd just come off the flight the day before, and I was saying to Steve, these are leather chairs, and we're going to recline back and all the rest. I'll be asleep within 10 minutes because of the jet lag and stuff. No, we wouldn't asleep because of the sound pressure.
And it was a good film. I really enjoyed
it was, yeah, it was.
It kept me engaged. Yeah. I got a bit heavy lid. My lid's got a little heavy at times because of the jet lag, but the sound was phenomenal in that cinema. Yeah. Unfortunately, the problem is having seen and heard it in a Dolby Cinema, trying to recreate that experience at home. I've never managed to get there.
You just need to throw more money at the problem, Steve.
I mean, the problem is to create cinema properly in the home, you need a lot of space. A lot of space, because that's what makes it is the space that you're in,
and maybe some more subs.
You can't have. Steve, I've been banging on about this for years to you. You can't have enough subwoofers.
It's more of a logistic. It's a practical. I've got 2 at the moment. I'd like 4, 1 in each corner, but in practical terms, that isn't possible because there's a door in one corner for one thing.
You don't need to leave the room. just have a dumb waiter and just have your meals and everything delivered in through the dumb waiter.
A catheter.
Yeah, good stuff. So we're going to do Q&A. So if you have got any questions that you're looking for us to answer, whether that be hardware or so on. I've seen a few for the Sky. Hopefully we've covered everything that we know about at the minute about Sky. But anything else we've been discussing there in terms of movies and hardware. Steve, what have you been reviewing this week? What have you been looking at?
Actually, what have I actually seen new? Nothing this week. I've been writing up reviews, but the stuff that I've already, I tested and looked at. I was supposed to be reviewing something this week, but it didn't turn up. So at the moment, I've got nothing. I've got 2 soundbars that have just arrived, but I haven't actually had a chance to set them up yet. So that's a LG single unit soundbar. What's it? The SN7, I think it's called. And the new 9-channel JBL Dolby Atmos soundbar. Okay. So some good stuff's arrived, but I haven't had a chance to actually play with it yet. I'd cleared the decks last week for something else that didn't show. So best made plans and all that.
Right, yeah. So I'm getting my first TV this week. So that's this coming week. So that's on the way. So it's the C10, LG C10, 65-inch. So starting with the big one, and then hopefully in the next few
rewrite my review. Job done.
That up the stairs.
What was that? Sorry, Ed.
How are you socially distancing that up the stairs?
Full PPE. So
right, okay, fair enough. It's going to get you. It's going to like Outbreak, but with a big box in the middle of it.
Yeah, basically.
Can you take some pictures of that? Because that sounds like
that sounds awesome.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we're all going to have to start to try and live with this as things go on, and we can't not review stuff. And as long as the courier and these couriers that bring the TVs, and Steve will back me up on this, it's normally the same people. They're normally not major courier companies. They're the smaller, more personalised service. So they're happy to wear the right gear, face masks and all that kind of thing, and gloves and hand sanitizers and all the rest of it. After all, they're coming into my house up the stairs, so I have to be happy as well. And I think as long as we're sensible with it, then I don't see there being an issue, to be honest. And I'm happy to take that because we are going to have to start living with this. So, it might be that they never find a vaccine. So we're going to have to find ways of getting around this and changing things and so on. So, yeah, that's the way I'm going to do it. I mean, how did you get the G10? Was that delivered into your garden? Or?
It was your man that's going to be delivering yours, I assume. It's the same guy from LG, isn't it? We just humped it into the lounge. He came he came with some no, that doesn't sound good either, does it? Let me rephrase that. He had alcohol,
an enormous package.
He did. It was bloody heavy, that G10. No, he had alcohol stuff to rub, wash your hands. So we did that and then moved it in, and I sort of left it there for a while, and then but yeah, it is not easy with a 65-inch TV. It's not the sort of thing you can just, if it's a small, like a small sound bar, you can just lob it in the spare room and leave it for a few days. But obviously with a TV, there's other issues, and you've got to get it up the stairs, which is a big problem for you.
Yeah. I mean, if it had been a 48 or even a 55-inch, I mean, they're light enough now, unless you get a designer one with a really heavy stand that I could lift.
Can you imagine saying to us 10 years ago, 55 inches, that's a one-man job? It's like, crikey, we must have been hitting the steroids.
But it is, I mean,
the Samsung Q95T was not a one-man job. That was quite heavy.
Was it? Yeah. I mean, sometimes the Samsungs can be heavy because the stands are.
The stands and solid build quality, it's murder on the back.
Yeah, but it's doable. So. It is doable. But like I say, I mean, we're all going to have to change the way that we're working, and we can't stop doing what we're doing. So we need to find ways around it. So hopefully we'll, the solutions will work, and we can get back to doing what we normally do. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you think of the C10, and also I'd be interested to see if they've got any UK catch-up services yet.
Yeah, well, they've had a few weeks since you did your review. Yeah, so.
Yes, they have, but apparently, certainly in the case of the BBC, I know that because of the current search situation, that ain't going to happen anytime soon. So, unfortunately, I think LG might find themselves in a bit of a bind as far as getting them certified, recertified this year. Right. I still don't understand what's happened with Preview Play.
No, it's a bit of a strange.
It'd be interesting when you get hold of a Panasonic, or if I get one. Whether that's got Freeview Play, because I have heard some rumours that Freeview Play isn't on any TVs this year.
Right. Well, that'll be interesting because I am due a Panasonic. Again, we're just trying to figure out delivery of that, so that'll be interesting to have a look at. I noticed that Sony's pricing was announced, and of course the 48-inch OLED. That's the one that we've been discussing for a number of months now on the podcast. In fact, we began discussing it last year when we knew that the 48 inches were coming, and we speculated that because of production numbers and so on, they were going to be around about the same price as a 55, and lo and behold, Sony priced it the same as a 55. It's £1,700, which is about the same price as a 55 C10 at the minute, isn't it? So so same price as 55. There, you're going to make a choice on what you can fit in your room, basically. 48's there for people who can't fit a 55 in. And you're going to have the same quality as everything else. So it's the A9. The interesting thing is that there is no other A9 models out. Stand by for IFA. That's where I expect the A9 to be unveiled in 55 and 65, and maybe even a 77-inch screen size.
Yes.
So that's the Sony A9. So keep an eye on IFA for that one.
I really tell what difference between the A9 is and the previous generation. But
no, they're a bit like LG in terms of if you couldn't see the model number, you'd be struggling to guess, especially the C series, because the C series they all look the same. It's only when you get bigger that the stand slightly changes. But
the 77 inch has got a stand. The 77 C9 has the same stand as the C8. But the 65 and 67 and 55 C9s had different stands to the C8 series.
It depends on the model suffix, because I have a C8 here, and the 65-inch C9 that I had long-term loan, it was the same stand. So I think they did change the stance a little. But anyway, I get what you're saying. The other thing is the 8K LED prices and availability have been confirmed, and not as monstrously expensive as it would be to go OLED. So they are the ZH8 model, and I'm just trying to remember the screen
75
sizes.
inch is 5999, and the 85 inch is 8999.
Yeah.
Which is I think that's similar to Samsung's pricing. I think that's kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah, they're very, very, very close, aren't they?
Which is not bad when you think for a screen that big. That's pretty good. And 8K, that's pretty good pricing.
So it's 8K. It's got the X1 Ultimate processor. It also has X Reality Pro technology for 8K. Obviously, it has
to name this chip hardware. I really do. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, but of course they also do the whole database thing, and Sony have been doing this longer than anybody else. Where they use databases to find out what the object is, and then add sharpening and so on to improve the image quality and the upscaling. They've been doing that a long time. I mean, Sony's motion and upscaling has always been good. It's suffered a little bit with the Ultimate chipset because they've taken away some of the motion settings and so on, which can cause a few issues with our 25 frames per second, 25 hertz TV signals and so on. So they have kind of taken a half step backwards there, but also you've got the IMAX enhanced.
Dolby Vision, Dolby
Atmos, what else? Netflix calibrated mode. So
interesting, no filmmaker mode, but they got a Netflix calibrated mode, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
They will not. They're not supporting filmmaker mode for some strange reason. So,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense to me to not support filmmaker mode if you're happy to stick a Netflix calibrated mode on your TV. What's the difference?
I don't know. I don't understand the thinking on that one. But again, you're talking about corporate decisions.
Sony have never played well with others, have they? Let's be honest.
No, and when it comes to film studio stuff and films and the professional side of the business, it's
well, except for that time they played with Philips and created the most successful audio format there has ever been.
Just but that was the one time they did it.
You would have thought that there's possibly
other things that Sony did on their own.
Yes, I grant you that it's not the lesson I draw. It's like, guys, we made the best thing ever. How do we do that again? Oh, we just ignore what everyone else is doing. Yeah. But no, I grant you that there's some interesting lessons drawn from that. But, nevertheless, they did create the most successful audio format of all time.
No, they did it twice. Actually. I take you back. They did it twice. They worked with Philips on the CD, then they sensibly worked with, was it Toshiba and Sony? Who did?
No, it was
that wasn't Sony, was it?
No, Toshiba was HD DVD.
No.
Sony
regular DVD. That was
regular DVD. Oh yeah, no, it was everybody. Everybody got involved with that. So it was Toshiba that did the drives, and along with Sony for that one. Yeah, I thought you were talking about.
No. Not, yeah, obviously when we got to high definition, they went back to the usual form of going around.
I have to say that is
ultimately, but they came down close to.
That is the best press conference I have ever been in my life, and it was right at the beginning of me doing CES coverage and that kind of thing. And I've never been in a press conference like that, a Toshiba press conference, where they finally just said, "Yeah, that's it. We give up. It ain't happening."
Headline that day, game over, man, just everywhere.
Yeah. I've never been in a press conference like that since.
Phil Paxton was still alive at that point. They should have just got him out to go, game over, man.
Poor Bill. I saw there was an event in 2016. So it was the 40th anniversary of Aliens, and they did a screening, and they had everyone involved: Cameron, Sigourney Weaver, Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn, even Carrie Henn, who played Newt. They were all there for a Q&A afterwards. So I was watching this Q&A, really interesting, and Bill was there, and looking good, looking thin, healthy. and then he was dead less than 6 months later.
Well, he had heart problem from childhood, and that was operated on, and he had a stroke resulting in complications from that. So yeah, unfortunately at that point he was exhibiting no issues. And that's what happened. It is dreadfully sad. Norlis has gone. Presumably, the first 18 months of 8K content will just be static shots of flowers and helicopter views and cityscapes. What you don't appreciate there is that as we can't go anywhere because of quarantine rules, you just show cityscapes from other countries, and it's like going on holiday. And it's going to be the sensation of 2021.
Ed, you joke, but that's a really good idea.
And essentially, actually, you could have drunk 8K, where essentially the camera goes to a bar, has many unsuitable flaming drinks, eats something with visible eyes later on in the evening, and it's like visiting a place that you've never been to before. It just gloriously, viscerally real. So yeah.
I think Norlis, I think the start of 8K is definitely all about upscale and upscaling, because there is going to be a real lack of native content, even more so than there was when we went to 4K. When we went to 4K, there was scope for Hollywood to follow, even with 2K DIs. What they can do work-wise with those and getting them up to 4K res for a disc with HDR and wide color gamut. There was a perceivable market there, and it made sense to go to 4K. With 8K, I don't see that market. So
it's going to be hugely dependent on creating stuff, and as you say, that's a challenge all of its own.
Yeah. So a lot of that is going to be upscaling engines, and you can see it from the manufacturers that have 8K screens out or launching 8K screens this year. They really are concentrating on their AI and what they can do. And the only delivery system that we're actually going to have for 8K is going to be online. It's going to be streaming. There is going to be no physical format for 8K. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what actually happens with that. So Kaz, let's talk about some movies, and we'll give people the time to get their questions in the chat window for hardware and movies. So what can we get 4K and Blu-ray at the moment this week?
Well, and I think we talked about it a couple of weeks back, but Bad Boys for Life comes out on 4K and Blu-ray tomorrow. Yeah, I know you and Steve absolutely loved it. I would say that I enjoyed it a lot, and it was the best you could possibly hope for.
Yep.
After all this time has passed, and it was very, very nice to have them back.
It was better than it had any right to.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. And the disc is spectacular. It's got no Dolby Vision, so it's got no bells and whistles, but it still looks absolutely tremendous. And it's also not full fat 4K. So like something like John Wick 2 or John Wick 3, it's another example of just what the format can afford, even without ostensible 4K.
I do like the way that we've sensitively tagged Martin Lawrence's face out of the review. Probably the best for all concerned.
It wasn't intentional at all. It's just the way it kind of cuts part of it. But yeah, I did pick that image, and him and part of the Porsche get cut out. So it was one or the other that had to go. But yeah, I really enjoyed that spectacular demo disc, demo audio and video. It comes highly recommended for those reasons.
And I think the thing it does really well, Kaz, is that it actually ages with the actors. So it's not like they're not trying to do what they could do when they were in the late 20s and early 30s. They're not doing the stunts that they used to do and all the rest of it. It's actually where they are in their life at this moment in time as characters, and that's what I really enjoyed. I thought it was pitched perfectly for that, and the humor works. The family life getting in the way and all the rest of it, and
it's got some heart to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot better than it should have been. The only sad thing is that it sets up a sequel.
Yes, I think that was an unnecessary and very Fast and Furious style addition post coda at the end. They definitely want to make it like the Fast and Furious franchise. And I don't know whether it needs
that's because
that.
they've made umpteen films that have made more money than most countries. Of course they want it to be like the Fast and Furious
I know,
franchise.
but it's a bit like we talked earlier about how DC tried to do that with Justice League, tried to capture the MCU, kind of the success of the
Zeitgeist.
MCU. And I think that it's fine that these franchises are extremely successful, but they should find a way of doing it themselves, because what works for another franchise like Fast and Furious may not work for Bad Boys. And I thought that the coda in Bad Boys really undermined some of the heart that the story had, and felt crowbarred in there. Whereas when it happens in Fast and Furious, you're like, yeah, who's the latest person they can bring back from the dead and suddenly make good? You expect it in that, but you don't expect it in Bad Boys, however frivolous it is. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. That's out on 4K and Blu-ray. And the shock of the week, well, not that much of a shock given that the Netflix series is going to debut tomorrow, but the shock of the week is Snowpiercer is getting its UK Blu-ray debut, which is a shock because it's a 2013 film that never got a theatrical release in the UK and never got a DVD or Blu-ray release. Was briefly on Amazon, I think, a year back, and then it was on Netflix for a bit, and then has finally got a Blu-ray release. Shockingly bad treatment, considering how enjoyable it is and how popular it has been in other countries.
The problem is though that it strikes me as a bit stable horse door bolted. I mean, it was on Netflix. I mean, it might still. It's now on Amazon, isn't it?
They should have gone straight for 4K. It'd be a bit like getting True Lies and The Abyss on Blu-ray now. People would be like, yeah, let's just get the 4K.
Well, at the very least, True Lies hasn't just done a solid year-long stint as part of your streaming services subscription.
I think True Lies was on one of the streamers in
Was
HD.
It?
Yeah, I seem to.
No,
maybe The Abyss has. Maybe
The Abyss was on Netflix for a bit in HD.
That's it. So The Abyss, if The Abyss did it, it would have been the same. But either way, I mean, it was really hard to see Snowpiercer in the UK with subtitles up until about a year ago.
It was in English.
With subtitles for the vast chunks of Korean, which are pretty integral to the plot, particularly the extended monologue at the end. I mean, I've had copies of it since it's released, and I dipped into various different versions, and I think I even got the ability to play region-free discs just so I could play a disc which had English subtitles.
Yes, the plot of Snowpiercer. Because I mean, when I watched it, I just remember thinking, this is a very plot-driven organization and not just a massive fight on a train.
I know, but it does have some really quite thoughtful sequences of dialogue, perhaps because it's the guy who did Parasite.
I know, I'm well aware of that, and I'm not to say that I didn't enjoy it, but I do remember finishing it and thinking, oh, yeah, okay, fine, I'm going to put some music on now and have a think. I mean, as I say, I'm delighted it's got a release. It just strikes me as very weird. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, the Blu-ray HD transfer will look better than the streaming services one, and if, as you say, there's nuances in the subtitles that I've managed to avoid up until this point, then that's a benefit too. But I don't necessarily feel the urge to rush out and buy it on those.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. It's not nuances on subtitles. Previous releases haven't had them, which is a problem for a movie where only 80% of it is in English. So you're fine if you watch it streaming, but if you picked up the French copy, or as I have, or you imported a Chinese copy, I think I got a Hong Kong copy, and there's a Japanese disc as well, or you're going to pick it up and you're going to get 80% of the movie, but the chunks where they're speaking Korean, which is surprisingly important, entire monologues, you're not going to get.
I had that problem with Kill Bill Volume 1. I had the Japanese DVD because it's got the full uncut version of the House of the Blue, whatever it's called, blue thing, in colour with all the violence put back in.
Oh, yeah,
but all the Japanese and subtitled.
Yeah.
You need to use your two screens running at all. So you need to go over to Phil's once with social distancing collapses, and he can have them running simultaneously. I just noticed that obviously the AV Forums copy, which has popped up, a strangely timely post-apocalyptic outing. Now, I'm not going to lie, things aren't all they could be in 2020, but I don't feel that we're on the last survivors on Earth trapped on a train level of bad just yet. Just throwing it out there. I mean, maybe
I haven't podcasts in Dawn of the Dead, I have to say.
I think we're two or three decisions away from freezing the Earth. I got two or three bad decisions away from
in an attempt to stop global warming, we went too far the other way.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any apes riding horses yet either, so we seem to be okay there as well.
Who thought that the best way of stopping global warming would be just to get everyone to work from home?
I don't want to be momentarily serious here, but those of you who have been putting up with me for some years will know that I have been banging on about the grossly unnecessary number of people that get up to do a job they could do just as easily sitting up in bed. If there is one good thing to come of this, and there's already been some announcements across globally from a number of companies saying, actually, we're not coming back. We're doing a we have established that there's no security issues and so on and so forth. So people that still want to come in, there'll be limited office space, but otherwise you're free to live where you want, and we'll work it out from there. That's the single most dramatic step change in employment, and the repercussions that has for public transport, for overcrowding, for infrastructure, they're just tremendous. I mean, it's not great news for Phil because we might go and live up where he is, where it's pretty and stuff like that. But
no, don't come up here. Durham's got nothing to offer anybody.
Apart from COVID patients.
Yeah.
But that's the that to me, that if we're scanning for positives, that's the big one.
I think you're right, Ed. I spoke to a few friends about this the other day for our weekly poker online, fake poker session, and a few of us and our partners in the group had been talking about how the companies they worked for, the respective companies, had said basically you're going to be working from home for the rest of the year, and irrespective of what changes, because the amount of, I mean, in the US they've got things like you have to do temperature checks, you have to have distance working inside the offices, and office space isn't always that big. They basically announced to several of the people I know that they're just going to be working from home for the rest of the year, and the universal reaction was, well, we can do it, so we're going to do that. It's worked out. We figured out how to work it out. I'm wondering whether these offices and the office rent and all that will just go to better use than that.
No, it's time for a significant, and it's it's the easiest win. We complain about overcrowding. Well, if everyone doesn't need to travel to some arbitrary location at the same time, that will
arbitrary time.
At an arbitrary time. Yeah. And we complain about the disproportionate effect on property prices in a big ring around London. I mean, I'm subject to some of that as well. Yeah. And then, in terms of the reduction in emissions, because, I mean, okay, it's not a perfect calculation because people will be running heating, ventilation, so on and so forth at houses which they weren't previously doing, or at least running it on tick over. So it's not a perfect transition by any stretch of the imagination. But nevertheless, the scope just strikes me as enormous, and the ability to rebuild local communities. So instead of your social life being the nearest pub you can get to outside of work, there's a bit more variation and excitement. I'm not necessarily a naturally positive human being, but if we are struggling for positives in this strikes me as the biggest one of the lot, and it could be a tremendous change.
And who needs to travel for business nowadays as well? I mean, there's the odd occasion where you physically need to be at a location somewhere else on the planet. Otherwise, you just have to look at the video conferencing and anything else that you can do now.
Same goes for us, doesn't it, Phil? I mean, how many times we go to press events and launches where all we really needed was the press release to film and some images, and that was the job done.
Yeah. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nice to get invited out to things and be given lunch and that kind of. But is it really necessary?
The only time
that's
it's
what I mean.
worth
It's
it
always
is-
fun to do these things.
The only time it's worth it is ignoring the lunches. Lunches are obviously worth it, but the only time that you get value added is when a member of an engineering team is left on stage too long and they start answering questions they shouldn't do, and that's just priceless and magnificent. And I would be sad to see that pass completely out of the circulation of how these things work.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just see it'd be interesting to see the food bills for some journalists that we know since lockdown started.
There's a certain journalist, I'm not going to name his name, but he must have taken a big hit the last 6 weeks because he's had no freebies from anyone.
Yeah,
he's had to get his credit card out of his wallet for the first time in 40 years.
And then it was out of date. So
I just want to quickly say, Judai Yuki, no, that's pronounced. I'm from the USA. I've been listening to every podcast since 2016. Well, hello to the USA, and thank you.
And my sympathies, but
really sorry for the way it's worked out over there, but I'm sure it'll be all right in the long run.
Right, no, I was referring to listening to us for 4 years.
It's only 4 years. I mean, I've been sitting here recording them since 2006, Ed.
I know. Well, I've been doing them for longer than, but at least I'm perpetually drunk. It's not.
Yeah, you get easy out.
2016 wasn't a coincidence. Maybe he started listening to us to get away from Trump or something like that.
No. Let's just don't go there. Yeah. I've been seeing what you've been doing on Twitter this week, Steve. We don't need that on the podcast.
Right. It's a good way of finding out when you think, I've lost 6 followers. Good.
Yeah.
To be honest, actually, weirdly, I lost a string of presumably vegan followers in my my live barbecue update. I apologise. Well, I do apologise, except that I'm not. I am vegetarian for quite considerable periods of time, but I'm not exclusively vegetarian. So my apologies for a litany of beef.
Anyway, where were we? Kaz, you were trying to get through the Blu-rays.
Really quickly, we've got the final season of Arrow on Blu-ray, the Apu trilogy, Criterion's release on Blu-ray, Dream Demon on Blu-ray.
Trilogy.
Apu.
What, from the Quickie Mart?
Apu.
I See You on Blu-ray and Little Women on Blu-ray. That's the latest version. TV and streaming releases. Snowpiercer season 1 releases tomorrow. Netflix has already been out in the US. Jennifer Connelly looks slick, high budget. They've already started shooting, if not finished, I think, a second season. So they're obviously going for it. Not sure about early reports. I'll let you all know at 10 o'clock in the morning once I've dipped into it. But
I'll watch anything with Jennifer Connelly in it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, quite. But I think they're going back to the source material, so have nothing to do with the movie, which only loosely adapted the original French comic.
I'll check it out. So it's on, when does that drop?
Tomorrow.
No,
yeah.
Is it a weekly thing or?
No, I think it's a whole lot. Well, I mean, Netflix. I don't think.
The last dance, which was absolutely brilliant. I've got no interest in basketball. That was some of the most compulsive sports documentary viewing I've ever seen in my life. I came away with it thinking, like, Michael Jordan, incredibly talented, massive dick, was sociopathically competitive.
And that
you can't be that good in any sport unless you are sociopathically competitive.
Yeah, but
I'm clear about this. There are no greatest of all time who are all round, sportsman-like nice guys. It just doesn't happen.
But also, because I had no idea what happened in 1997-98 basketball season, it was really exciting because I didn't know that the Chicago Bulls, actually won it again.
Hey, Steve, spoilers.
Spoil something that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, just at this point before we go on to do some Q&As, and we've still got to talk about The Rock, which I know Steve is dying to get on to talk about his best and worst films.
Come off it.
We'll have to,
good or better
topics for discussion.
Right. We do have to quickly do
Space Force, did you?
Yeah, I was going to say we never get through these full lists, but basically, Space Force, Steve Carell comedy coming to Netflix also. It does look good, yes.
And Agents of Shield back in the UK.
Well, I'm saying Agents of Shield final season starts, but I think it's US only, which means if it comes to us on Channel 4, we'll see it in 2021.
Oh no, I think it'll be on E4 in June.
Well, I hope so.
Because they're usually around about the same time as the US.
Yeah. I hope so. I'm looking forward
last year, so it should be quite soon.
Sorry, just popped up. ASL. Lionel Messi is not well known as a sociopath. Well, no, but he has. That's separate from that. But he has had an enormously disruptive effect on Barcelona managers, team selection, and all manner of other things. Simply, the team is built around him, so he's not in a convention. He's not in the same way as Michael Jordan, no, but nevertheless he has an enormously distorting influence on the environment in which he finds himself. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Right. Also ASL, I haven't seen Devs yet.
No, neither have I. I watched Hobbs and Shaw. I spent 2 hours and 30 minutes watching the television last night, and that's more than I have cumulatively watched the television for the rest of the week.
We're really building up to this The Rock best movies Dwayne Johnson thing, aren't we?
Also, sorry to ASL, I have been watching the Mandalorian behind the scenes doc, which is quite interesting, although it's a bit of a circle jerk at times.
Right. We need to get on and do the donations and questions, which is really quite important because we've got 3 patrons, our first 3 patrons. So thank you very much, James Wilmot, Mr. H, and Peter Yule. Thank you very much. Fergie B, £10 donated. Thank you very much, Fergie. He says, hi guys, will we ever see 12-bit Rec 2020 TVs? Yes, probably 15 years, maybe. You don't really need it at the moment because nobody's producing content for it, and even if it existed, the time it takes and the amount of investment that has to be made to change production, how they capture things, how they produce things, how effects are done, and all the rest of it. It takes such a long time to do that it's still a bit away yet.
To be honest, it won't be a TV. It'll be a Matrix-style spike in the back of your head that beams it in.
Probably. That's what you're looking at. I mean, we might get to see, it depends how quickly technology moves on. It depends how the current event that we're going through impacts on things as well. There is interesting technology in the pipeline. Steve's been over and seen some of it last year. It was supposed to move quicker this year. It's probably not going to happen. But in terms of 12-bit Rec 2020, in terms of 12-bit, I really don't think you need it at the moment. And that's probably going to be the last thing that gets added, as well as Rec 2020. I think DCI P3 done correctly, shown on a high nit HDR TV. That's something to see, and not a lot of people have seen that yet. No. Yes, you can buy an HDR TV at £600. You're not seeing HDR. It's a version of it, but it's not HDR. We've still got a long way to go with that technology. We're not even a third of the way into it. In my opinion, and as the technology gets better and we can get the brightness from these displays, it's going to get really good. So yeah, lots to do there. Will Sky ever be able to broadcast a live program the HLG? We mentioned that at the start, Fergie. I don't know if you heard that or not. Live will more than likely be HLG. If you're asking my opinion on that, I don't see any other way of doing it, to be honest with you. Gordon 2147 has donated £10. Thank you very much, Gordon. It is appreciated. Hope you can keep this going despite the troubles we're going through. Well, nothing,
despite the quality of the show,
nothing has actually changed. Being serious from our point of view and from where we are.
Yeah, like aside from fun over couriers, that's it.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah. So we can't quite get out as much as we like to escape, but things are lifting. I mean, I've been out more in the car in the last week than I have for the last 7 or 8 weeks. You've been sticking
bits on the car.
The car's gone this week.
I know, I saw that.
Car's not here.
Is there not an enormous article of trust in that, insofar as you hand the car over to someone and it comes back immaculate, but it doesn't mean that the journey it does to being made immaculate isn't done at 10/10ths?
Yeah. I trust. You see, this is the thing though. I wouldn't give anybody my car And I've known Chris, who's my detailer. If people are wondering what we're talking about, my car's going away for a spa week, basically.
His car goes for a spa week. It's not joking.
You mean you don't just give the keys to some dodgy Polish bloke in the car park at the supermarket?
No, Steve. I love my car. That wouldn't happen. I've known Chris for 5-6 years now. He's worked on all my cars that I've had from new, and he's a petrol head. He loves his cars. I know it'll get treated properly, and great care will be taken, and it always comes back immaculate. He does what he says he's going to do.
I'd be tempted to let him have a go on the Fiesta, but I think it would probably just break him as a human.
You might actually find out that it's blue, Ed.
There were rumours that it was blue, and there's photographic evidence that it was once blue. And actually, it rained yesterday, so it's blue-ish at the moment. I mean, I will attend. It will be returned to its lease masters, looking bluish again. But life is too short for clean cars. I'm sorry. I mean, I always used to thoroughly have an enormous amount of respect for Mick Asalo, Formula One driver, who had been a Ferrari development driver for years and years and years. And they gave him a 355 and he never cleaned it. It just basically bombed around like a giant woodlouse. And I have a huge amount of time for the sheer not giving a damn.
Yeah.
About that.
I get that as well. There's two, I think, types of petrol heads. They are people like yourself, Ed, who absolutely love the cars as much as I do. But when it comes to cleaning them or whatever...
Oh, yeah, I never skimp on maintenance. All of the oily bits are always in immaculate nick, but the outside of it just looks like a state.
Yeah. It's whereas I get really OCD. I'm a bit like Steve in terms of OCD. When it comes to cars anyway, it has to be clean. My house is a tip. You
can see.
Well, you can't. You just see this green screen.
Of a purple smoke bomb in the background. So.
Yeah, I'm not one of these like sort of house proud, but I am car proud. That car is absolutely spotless, and but I do take it to car shows and that kind of thing. And
I think it's probably helped by the fact that you don't put a 6-year-old in it on a regular basis.
Yeah,
because you'd soon give up the fight if that
probably
was
true. That right. I think we need to get some Q&A done, and then we're going to finish off with The Rock, or Steve's going to finish off with The Rock.
I'm going to finish The Rock off. Boom, dish.
Yeah, there's the drum roll when we need it. Right, so hopefully everybody's been looking through these and they've got some questions. So Kaz, anything movie-wise to answer that you've seen?
Yeah, a couple of people have chipped in about Jaws 4K. So we got Stevie DR has mentioned, has Jaws arrived yet? Can we believe the picture quality hype? It's meant to look very nice as well as a decent Atmos track.
Well, I saw it at the cinema last August, and so I can vouch it's going to look fantastic.
That's right as well.
Fantastic.
So I didn't, but I was kind of hoping Steve's 4K disc had arrived. Mine hasn't.
No, it hasn't even come out yet. It doesn't come out till 2nd of June.
Yes, I know, but I thought you'd ordered it from America.
Yeah, no, it comes out in America on the 2nd of June.
You just seem to get stuff early, Steve. So I was just relying on you.
But obviously, things are taking longer to arrive from the States as well, because for obvious reasons. So not expecting it till mid-June.
Yeah, it should look really good. I mean, they did the Wetgate pass for the Blu-ray. How long ago was that? Was that 10 years ago now?
Yeah, the Wetgate's
that's what it'll be based on, but they'll have done an HDR pass. Well, I know they've done an HDR pass on it because that's what we saw at the cinema. It might not have been in HDR, but you could actually tell that they'd regraded. There was certain areas where it really stood out. Early morning when she goes for a swim, right at the opening of the film, the sunrise there, the clouds, the sun behind the clouds, the dynamic range was really, really nice. So I think it's going to look good. Fingers crossed.
It's got an Atmos soundtrack as well, apparently. It's quite good. Although there was also the original mono track for those that are purists.
Yeah. I mean, I recently got Top Gun. Have you got that, Steve?
No, it's on its way. Back and right.
Yeah, that turned up from the States. It did take a while to actually turn up, understandably, under the circumstances. But
again, that only came out last week.
Yeah, I know, but I still think these things ship a little bit earlier. But anyway, I was really chuffed to get that in it, and it looks amazing considering. I think maybe I was spoilt by the fact that I didn't get the remastered Blu-ray. So I don't think I'd ever seen it look good. So I think it looks spectacular. I'm looking forward to all of the cruise ones that are getting re-released. That's probably going to be the way of the future when it comes to 4K at the moment.
I think actually, looking at the release schedule after Jaws, there's the Columbia Pictures box set which I've got on order with Lawrence of Arabia, and then in August there's the Flash Gordon box set which I'm also going to get. And that's it. I mean, there is nothing else coming out or announced at the moment, and I'm assuming if there is, it'll obviously be catalog title because clearly nothing's come out at the cinema. So I think my disc buying will diminish, not through choice, but through a lack of.
Surely you could pivot to music. I mean, obviously the dad rock.
On next week I'm getting my Iggy Pop, the David Bowie years. His 1977 period in Berlin when he did The Idiot Lust for Life, and also it includes TVI and 3 other concerts with Bowie playing keyboards on them. So looking forward to that.
I mean, now is the best time for studios if they want to push 4K and they've got no new content and they want to make money when there's no new content. It's the best time to be pushing.
If we don't get The Abyss
releases
this year, we're never getting it.
I don't think we're ever getting it. Yeah. The Abyss and True Lies, I think they'll be the first things out on 8K. I think.
I can't help but think that True Lies in 8K, bits of that are going to look rough.
No, Ed, it's going to be native. Didn't you know?
Oh yeah, James Cameron, a man ahead of his time. Unfortunately, I watched that South Park episode, Raising the Bar, not that long ago. And every time you mention the words James Cameron now, I just think of the James Cameron song in that episode, which it's fine. It's a lovely, I mean, like all South Park songs, it's a well-crafted and tuneful little ditty, but it takes some of the gravitas away from the man. Although, that said, he was interviewed about it, and he thought it was magnificent. But then, when asked if he had it as his ringtone, he didn't. And quite frankly, if you had a song written about you by Trey Parker and Mark Stone, and you didn't use it as your ringtone, what is this world coming to?
Actually, Team America was on the other night when I was flicking through the channels, and I had to actually sit and watch it. Forgotten how good that was. I mean, we spoke about it a few weeks ago on the podcast, but I had forgotten about just how funny that film is and how creative it is as well. Really good. Anything else?
It's socially distanced and responsible as well.
Any other questions that we've picked up on there? Steve, anything that you've seen?
I was just going to say ASL's wrong about Avatar 2. That's already been filmed, and Avatar 3.
And
No, he hasn't done 4 and 5 yet. He's just done 2 and 3. And as he put it, let's be honest, if 2 and 3 aren't a hit, there won't be a 4 and 5. Yeah, they already shot. He's doing the effects at the moment. So I think Avatar 2 comes out Christmas next year.
It just strikes me as a strange universe to deep dive. I mean, it was I don't mind Avatar.
I couldn't care less. I wish he would do something original rather than going back to Avatar films. But he's done sod all for 12 years, so he's been slacking off some. He's done one film since Titanic, and that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, he seems to be the type of person who, when he gets interested in a subject, he really gets interested. Like Titanic, you know what I mean? It was like he did all the documentaries, all the dives to the ship, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, he seems to get fixated on something. And
I think the phrase sociopathically competitive might also apply to James Cameron.
Yeah, but like you said, I'd like to see him do something because he's a great filmmaker. He does some fantastic stuff. But
yeah, if only he makes some films.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we said about George Lucas, and then he made the prequels, and then
that's true. That's true. Careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. I'll quickly answer Phil Singh. He's been asked about 8 times on this thread now. Yeah, eventually I will be doing a review of a PSA sub. I've done the testing. I just haven't got around to writing it up yet, but it's in the pipeline.
Yeah,
so don't hold your breath.
August for that.
Don't hold your breath. There was a interesting question. Did you see that, Phil, from our American viewer, Judai Yuki? He was asking about in Japan, where the color temperature they use is 9,300 Kelvin, which is absolutely correct. Yeah. If so, what's the color temperature I should be using when watching old anime? Depends on where you bought it from, I guess.
Interesting.
The disc release, I don't.
because it depends which studio's finished it and where it's been finished. Because if it's a Western studio that's finished it, then it's going to be D65. If it's been done in Japan, I don't know. I mean, I think 9300K, and I could be wrong on this and need to be corrected, but I think that only applies to live TV and TV shows that were made in Japan. I don't think Japanese cinema uses that standard. I think they follow the Western standard of D65. But I could be wrong on that one. But I certainly know that their TVs, their live TV and TV shows and so on, they were done in 9300K. Absolutely, because I've been in Japan and watched them, and as is Steve. Steve's lived in Japan and watched Japanese TV, and I was
unaware of that fact though at the time.
Well, you
20 odd years, 20 years ago. I didn't know.
Yeah, but you just have to see Japanese TV to understand that why it's just everything's vivid colours and
Japanese TV
bonkers.
It is the funniest thing ever. I mean, I was watching TV. This is 15 years ago, watching in high definition, and the weatherman was still sticking clouds onto a felt board. That's not a joke.
Yeah. Well, it also goes on. I noticed he's got a second question. Yeah, can you recommend a bias light 6500K? A lot of bias lights claim that they are, but actually are not. If you can get one that is 6500K, then technically you're correct. But any bias lighting that's not blue, not overly blue, behind your TV is what you're looking for, because you're looking for something that's going to relax the eye. That is the whole point of a bias light. I mean, the bias light that I've got a screen in front of me here, a 27-inch screen, and I've actually got a yellowish. It's not 6500, but it's just a nice warm light behind. And the same with the TV at the moment that I have. I've got a C8, LG C8 sitting on the stand at the minute. And again, I've just got a warm light behind that. It's not 6500K. If you can get 6500K, great. If not, then something that's nice and warm and not overly bright. It's just to relax the eye. Anything with a blue light and stuff like that is like a mobile phone screen is normally a blue light. That's why if you're looking at your phone late at night, you sometimes have a headache or trouble getting to sleep or whatever, because it's too white, it's too blue, and it affects the eye. Whereas something that's nice and warm and yellow should help. And I don't know, Steve, you've reviewed a couple of products that you can actually stick on behind the TV, haven't you?
Yeah. What were they called? Dream Screen. That was it.
Right.
Dream Screen. Although the only problem with those were, I think one of the things I complained about was that the app didn't have a D65 option.
Right.
But if you, for example, if you wanted the easy solution, just buy a Philips TV with Ambilight, which does have a D65 option, ISF setting.
No, only the ISF screens do.
Yeah, yes.
Because I had 754 and it didn't have it.
Yeah, so. Yes, the ISF screens have got an ISF setting. Otherwise, you have a sort of like, I think, is there a neutral setting?
It's cinema setting, and again, it's a warm light. It's not bluish white. It's like a warm white, which is all you really need. I mean, if you want to be technically correct, find a 65. I think HD Fury also do something with one of their latest boxes where you can put some lights behind the TV and set them up as well. But yeah, bias light, it's a good idea.
Definitely.
You should never actually sit and watch TV in the dark. Projectors, yes, because it's reflective image. You'll get your best out of it. You'll get the best in terms of black levels and shadow details and so on. A TV, which is a direct view device, and it can go incredibly bright compared to a projector screen. So if you're calibrating a projector screen, we're normally aiming for about 14-foot Lambert. A TV would probably start at about 40, 45 in the lowest settings, like our cinema mode setup. You're talking 45, and in a standard mode, you're close to 70 or 80. So that shows you what the difference is in brightness. If you're sitting watching that in a dark room, and of course the scenes are changing all the time, you might not notice it, but your eye is opening and closing all the time to make sure that picture is always correct. And that's why your eye gets tired. That's why you start to feel tired. So that's why, yes, a calibrated image can look dull if you're coming from standard mode or vivid mode straight away and you look at it. But the more time you actually spend with a properly calibrated image and with a little bit of bias lighting in the room as well, it's amazing how much detail you get from the image, how more natural it is, and how it's a lot easier to sit and watch that without getting tired. That's kind of the point behind it. So yeah, any sort of warm light behind the TV is going to work for you. Any other questions,
Pulp
Ed?
fan. Any of you heard the Wharfdale Evo? Yes, I've heard the Evo 4.2. Spent some time with it here, in fact, for another publication. It's hideous. I think it's one of the very least aesthetically appealing loudspeakers I've tested in quite some time, but it is very, very good. There aren't many other speaker companies anywhere I can think of that could get that collection of drivers out of the door for the price of that speaker. They are expensive drivers and they're very good. The performance is very, very good indeed. It's the sort of thing that will respond well to being partnered with equipment that actually costs quite a bit more than it. Very impressive. If you can live with their distinctive appearance, you will, they're exceptionally good. Very, very good products.
I just want to bring up something here, which is has been caused by the bias light, and we're just going to quickly go back to this because Brother Paul just brought up an interesting point here that I wanted to mention. I forgot to mention it, and Steve will back me up on this one. You're talking about a hue app that changes color with the screen, which is what Ambilight does in some of the modes. You can follow the music or follow the video, and what it does is it extends beyond the screen what the color is. So if you've got ocean on this side of the screen, then that portion of the wall will turn blue, and if it's green on this side, some portion of your wall will be green, and whatever. That's fantastic for about 5 minutes, and it's a trick. And it looks cool and so on. And if that's what you like, then that's great. We're not saying that's not to be enjoyed. However, you need to realize that if you have a color behind the screen that is not a warm white color, any other color is going to affect how your eyes perceive colors within the actual image. And if you were to go completely the other way and put red, like a TV on a red wall, what happens, Steve?
What happens if you put a TV on a red wall? It will affect the way you perceive the image on the screen.
Yeah. So all the colours on the screen basically change because your eyes seeing the red, and it then starts subtracting it or adding it to colours that's on the screen, and then what you have is a mess. So these things look cool, and I've seen some demonstrations with lightsabers on the screen and so on, and the hue lights either side of the TV, and for 5 minutes you get the wow, isn't that cool? But then actually it gets really tiresome really, really quickly because, again, your eyes are all over the place. Your pupils are moving all over the place, and it's not the best thing. So if you want to watch an image, not be tired, and see it the way it's supposed to be seen, don't put a bright colour behind your TV and don't have a hue change in effect, because that is just going to change the whole way you perceive it. It's not going to make it any better. It's not going to suddenly make the screen huge and you be part of the movie. It doesn't work like that. It actually starts changing the colours within the movie. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong and that you should change it, but if you want to watch the movies the way it's supposed to be, and the one thing that filmmakers do use to their advantage within film is colour. Filmmakers tell story with colour. It's very subtle, but they can make you feel a certain way. Can make a scene go a certain way just by using colour. And if you're affecting the way colour's seen, within that scene, you're completely changing it. Easiest example I can give is The Matrix. Inside The Matrix and outside The Matrix, there's supposed to be certain colours. If your colours are all over the place, you're not going to get the effect of being in The Matrix, being in the real world, and so on. That's how filmmakers use colour. And some are more subtle than others. But if you're not seeing colour the way they want you to see it, then you're not actually seeing the film. So I get all these things about having lights behind the screen and the following action, all the rest of it. Just be aware that you're actually changing the whole way that movie's being seen. Any other questions that we need to
just
wrap
before
up
we wrap up? I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone that posted in the 50 albums thread. Yep. There was a cracking amount of feedback on that. Two people very politely pointed out that I didn't do much in the way of metal suggestions. I'm afraid it's, as I pointed out at the beginning, it's not necessarily my kung fu, but thank you for taking the opportunity to then put some ideas in yourself. The one thing I'm going to say that I think was slightly missed is people going, oh, you missed, Led Zepp and Radiohead. And it's like, no, they were quite big bands. I'm confident that people have heard of Led Zeppelin and Radiohead and the rest of it and so on and so forth. It deliberately tried to avoid the most not mainstream, the most significant acts in a given genre. That was the whole sort of modus operandi to it. But I'm glad some people have enjoyed some of the recommendations there. It was enjoyable to do. If you'd like more of that sort of content, then yeah, happy to provide it. I'm open to suggestions as to what that content might be. So all good. Thank you very much for that.
And thank you, Ed. I thought it was a great piece. I've used it to find lots of music I didn't even know existed. A lot of the 60s, 70s, 80s stuff I've really been enjoying. And again, music I've never heard before, or groups I certainly weren't aware of. Or I'd maybe heard a sample of one of their songs or whatever and then decided to listen to more. So, yeah, thank you very much for that article. It really was useful and appreciated.
It was good fun to write. So there we go.
Right. For the second week in a row, we're way over time. We'll get better at this. I promise we will. But we need to wrap up on The Rock and the best and worst of Dwayne Johnson. So I guess we have to go to the Uber fan. First of all. So Steve, tell us why you love Dwayne.
I'll tell you why I like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I think that he is charming and charismatic in a way that people like Schwarzenegger never were. He can actually act, which he proved in a number of films, but certainly, Jumanji only worked because you genuinely believe that some, nerdy, unconfident kid is stuck inside the body of The Rock. And he sells that completely. So, yeah, I mean, and as a general rule, he's a hardworking guy. He churns the films out. They tend to be, they're not masterpieces, but there's generally a high level of quality about them.
Yeah.
There's the odd misfire. I don't think Baywatch was necessarily the best choice.
Skyscraper.
I did quite enjoy Baywatch.
But Baywatch I thought was quite funny at times. Skyscraper, the big problem with Skyscraper was it didn't deliver its premise. Because its premise was Die Hard in the Towering Inferno, and that's not what I got. And that's what I wanted. Whereas Rampage was giant monkey and giant monsters fighting, and that's exactly what you got. And I came out of that one happy. So there's been a few misfires, but on the whole, when you go and see a film, and also if you add The Rock to any other franchise, it's look at the Fast and Furious. Yeah. Fast 5 is the best film in that. Sorry?
Although he's been kicked from there now.
Well, some people might say not so much kicked as he's moved to another franchise, an adjacent franchise, and they'll move everybody else across and just leave Vin Diesel on his own. But Fast 5 is the best film in that franchise.
But Fast 5 is still one of the most curious aberrations in modern cinema.
No, it's not an aberration. They added The Rock.
It is an absolute aberration. No, The Rock is one small part of all of a sudden taking a franchise that was at best treading I've said before, it's the equivalent of setting fire to some ingredients in a bin and getting a MasterChef winning souffle out the other end of it. It's so unlikely.
Well, see, Kaz sent me the box set because Kaz banged on to me. I don't know what we're talking about, but Kaz kept saying,
it was a year.
You have to watch them.
Telling you, yes.
You have to watch them. And I'd only ever seen the first one and maybe a little bit of the second one. I thought, really? It says, yeah, I'll send you the 4K disc. Just do me a favour and watch them. And I got to the end of 4 and I'd had a bit enough. It was like, oh, jeez, I have to do more of this. I watched 5. I was hooked. It was like, more. Yeah. Give me more of this. And
you
that
get
is
more.
Definitely the high point. Yeah. But 5 is definitely the high point, I think.
Yes, unquestionably.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Inject it into my veins.
But coincidentally, and I didn't realize this when you selected the quotes for this week, but I actually did watch The Scorpion King last week. I had a perhaps ill-advised decision. I realized, I've got all the Mummy films, the Brendan Fraser ones, on 4K disc. I haven't watched them yet, so I watched them. And obviously The Rock pops up in The Mummy Returns
as the worst CGI in.
Well, in fairness to The Rock, I mean, he's only in it for the first couple of seconds at the beginning, and after that, he's a terrible CGI creation at the end. The effects on those first 2 films, have not held up well. But then they made The Scorpion King, which is a prequel, although he's really a completely different character than the one in The Mummy Returns. But basically, it's just a Conan the Barbarian movie under a different name, and he's great in it. And it's the first time I'd ever seen the guy, actually. I mean, it was his first big starring role. And he's really good in it. And he's done some cracking filming. Hercules is a really great film, I think. He can act when he needs to, but he also knows not to take things too seriously. And the majority of rock movies, you will come out of them entertained. And what more could you want for these days?
I think Brother Paul says it perfectly, although he says he's not a rock fan. He says he thinks he's a nice guy. And I think that's the thing with him as well is, although I don't know the guy, he seems like he is a genuinely down-to-earth, nice guy.
Yeah.
And if you see him in the street, he wouldn't mind you going up and saying, "Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for your films and stuff." He seems like an approachable guy, down-to-earth, not your usual Hollywood actor or whatever. And I think that works in his favour, absolutely. So that was a good point, Paul, there.
No, he does appear to be. I mean, obviously, you never can be quite sure because he is an actor and he's a performer. But yes, he appears to be decent. He works bloody hard and he sells the shit out of this stuff because he sells and sells and sells his product, and he does it really well.
And he supported quite a few projects here and there as well.
Yeah, lots of wood courses.
Yeah, I mean, one of the films I really enjoyed, and he only plays a cameo of himself in it, and that was Fighting with Your Family. And what a great little film that is. And again, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for The Rock getting involved and pushing it forward and getting the financing for it and all the rest of it. So, yeah, he comes across as a nice guy. He's funny. He's very personable. And the roles that he picks, like you say, Steve, I think he thinks carefully about what he's going to get involved in, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out for him. But yeah, Kaz, any highlights for you?
I got a soft spot for some of his early films when he was still finding his footing. I have to say, I love him, and I'll watch any film he's been in. I'm not really sure that any of them have been. He hasn't ever nailed an all-time classic for me. I love the Jumanji films because they're a different level, but he's never done a Die Hard or a I don't know, Terminator 2 for me. And looking back at his film history, he never quite took over the mantle of like people like Arnie.
That's as much a reflection of how the situation changed.
Yes, I agree. But looking back at, he did a film called Welcome to the Jungle back when he started,
which is basically a remake of Midnight Run.
Yeah, it was absolutely. It is a remake of Midnight Run, and it's very enjoyable, and I love it. And I remember there's a point early in the film where he walks past Arnie in it, and Arnie says, "Good luck," as if he's the next guy taking over in these roles. I mean, I could be remembering it wrong. It has been a few years since I've seen it, but it was a lot of fun. But he never took over that mantle. And I agree with Ed. There isn't really a mantle to take over. I mean, Statham maybe took it a bit more seriously, but he never did it either, really. And there isn't an action hero of 2020. But The Rock has had to adapt it and has become a capable at churning out very good 7s and maybe 8s out of 10, and with things like Jumanji, it's an inventive way of doing something maybe more in the genre. But I think I always hoped he'd have like a Die Hard in him, and maybe there isn't a Die Hard to be had, but I do miss that time when I was a little unsure as to whether The Rock could actually be serious. And having seen him in Fast and Furious, it's quite clear that he can't really be, because even in Fast and Furious, when he's trying to be this really serious cop, he's also kind of poking fun at it, or I hope he is, because he's absolutely hilarious with his accent and his, massive gun and really imposing masculinity in it and going toe to toe with Vin Diesel. I hope he's just having a complete ball, because I don't look at him in those films and go, oh yeah, he could be the next John Rambo. I kind of look at him and go, yeah, you're a tremendous addition to this slightly over the top comic franchise. I use the word slightly with inverted commas there. But
if he ever did actually go toe to toe with Vin Diesel and apparently do not get on,
it wouldn't
my money's on The Rock.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Most definitely.
But it's interesting that he doesn't often do serious. Not serious.
He's done a few series. Snitch. Have you seen Snitch?
I've seen Snitch, and I've seen Faster.
He's good in that.
Yeah, Snitch to a point, but but I saw. But Faster is a proper vendetta movie with Billy Bob Thornton, and he's required to be serious throughout. I'm just not sure it suits his acting style. I think it's slightly better when you know that it's a little bit tongue in cheek. I mean, I have to say my favorite film for him probably is Secretly Moana, because I absolutely love him in that. He's singing his song. And
the other thing is that again, the challenge is that his physicality isn't going to fly in what is essentially a voice.
Yeah,
job.
but he so does. Yeah,
but it does, and it works. And he turns in a respectable song. It's regardless of what Steve says, it's not by any stretch of the imagination the best song in the thing.
It's a good song though. I love it.
It's tremendous.
Just admit it, Steve, that you had a significant emotional event on that Twitter thing I sent you, or was it Facebook thing I sent you? Oh yeah. That was, I was so guilty pleasure rock movie is Walking Tall. I sort of, admittedly, there's a number of other factors in this. It's got what's his chops from Neil McDonough from Band of Brothers, and lots of other that guy things that he did, and just enough Johnny Knoxville to not great.
Yes, back in the day when you could do that in a movie.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those things. This is like Twister. If I see it's on, I'll probably have to watch it.
I quite enjoyed Walking Tall. It was that era where he was still finding his footing. Yeah. I mean, he was doing. I've never seen Southland Tales, but I've always been interested in that. He did Doom, where of course he was supposed to be very serious, but I'm not sure I ever took him seriously.
Nobody was terribly serious.
Serious in that, yeah, I know.
He didn't help. They injected just the right number of Brits into Doom, who clearly realised they were on the set of a sort of catastrophe. It's like, do you know what? I'm not going to take this 100% seriously. Actually, Son of SJ pointed out San Andreas.
One man taking government property and using it for his own personal use.
Gross dereliction of duty in every way, shape, and form.
Oh, I love San Andreas. That's.
I love it as well, but it's just
It is utter nonsense, but I've come to expect that from him.
Yeah, he's also quite a talented comedian. I mean, he's funny in Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart. He's very funny. He's very funny.
Really good, yeah.
What I'd like to see him do is play against type, and maybe we'll get a bit of that with Black Adam. I'd like to see him play the villain.
Yes, maybe.
Well, that's just what I was going to say, Steve. It'd be nice to see him, playing against type and doing something a little bit different. Just because what really made him stand out for me was I wasn't a huge fan of him. I knew enough about him, and I knew he was a nice guy and all the rest of it. But for me, it was Jumanji, where I really thought he has some acting chops. This guy can act, and he's also got everything else there that could make him a leading man in Hollywood. He's got that there. Like you say, comic timing and all that kind of thing. He's a nice guy and so on. But I'd like to see him play the bad guy.
To be fair, one of the reasons that Fast 5 is so effective is that he is the antagonist or an antagonist.
Yes.
I'm sorry if that's a spoiler.
He's not a bad guy, but you're right. He's the antagonist.
He is, yeah.
Which I think helps, and it's another weird twist to why that film works against all odds, logic, and reason. Can I just say one of the things that amuses me most about Fast 5? This is appallingly niche, and I'll apologise in advance. But when Paul Walker and Jordana Brewster's character rock up at the start of the film, it's implied that they're on their uppers. They've run out of options and they're against the and he's driving a 1971 Nissan Skyline. It's an unbelievably rare car. It's right-hand drive. You'll see in the film because there were never any. So they're on their uppers and just bimbling round in like $150,000 worth of unbelievably rare Japanese classic car.
What they mean is they're down to their last million.
They're down to their last Skyline. Only just it's the most one of the most expensive Skylines you can buy. I just that is for me. It's one of the little stitches that makes the film perfect.
Yeah, I would say I was definitely looking for that as one of the things that didn't make sense. It was that and the bit with the safe.
Oh, the safe. Yeah, I mean, obviously
toe as
that's
to which
far
one of
less.
those is less believable.
Far less of an issue, but you know, it just amuses me. That's what can I say, Kaz? I'm an arse and a pedantic arse at the best of time.
The whole safe thing was just fantastic.
It was fantastic.
As a sequence, and now I'm going to go against type here. That as a sequence to watch in the cinema was quite something.
Yeah.
It's like you're surrounded by people going, "I'm not drunk enough for this," but it's quite entertaining nevertheless.
It takes 2 cars to drag it all the way down, and they barely do it. And at the end, it's like Vin, and he's got to go it alone, so he hits his turbo. And somehow manages
nitrous
to
oxide.
Oh, sorry, nitrous. Yeah,
yeah. Get right, Kaz.
Yeah. He hits his nitrous oxide in his 1971 Skyline.
He's in the Dodge Charger by that point. But no, equally, I mean, obviously, I was watching it last night. Don't forget that 4 random pickup trucks worth of nitrous oxide will tow a Black Hawk helicopter around in Hobbs and Shaw. So you know, nitrous oxide is the cure for all of the world's problems.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw, the end of Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, but again, the last 30 minutes of Hobbs and Shaw, you can, they did the bit at Chernobyl or wherever it was, and then they thought, no, this is not crazy enough.
Yeah,
we need to have a helicopter. We need to have.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't forget The Rock literally holding the helicopter down.
Yeah.
He is literally holding onto this helicopter.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess we have to end the rock section with Steve's favourite rock film. I don't think you've said what your favourite film is.
That's a tough call.
I don't it's like asking you to choose your favourite kid or whatever.
Jumanji 1.
I was going to use a different word there. I'm glad you went with kid.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to have to agree with Kaz that the first Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is probably my favourite. I mean, San Andreas is a definite guilty pleasure. There's a few in there, but in Jumanji, it was, like you said, Phil, he got a chance to actually act and show what he can do, and therefore, it is a really good film with a nice emotional payoff at the end.
Yeah.
And everyone in it's good. They all bring their A game. So
and even the sequel, it could have gone really wrong, but I think they did enough with it. The next level to keep it going, and again, for me, that's where I sat up and took notice of him. And
I think worst film, I'm going to have to pick it because not because he's bad in it really. I just think it's not a great film for many, many, many reasons. It's Pain and Gain, which is just an unpleasant film about unpleasant people, made by a director who really
was unpleasant.
Unpleasant. Yeah. So but that's not really The Rock's fault. I mean, he plays the character he's there to play, and he does a good job. But he's in a film, I think, that's full of some very despicable acts that makes it difficult to really enjoy it. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we need to wrap up, guys. If you are watching live and you've enjoyed the show tonight, then please do like the video. Click the like button, and of course, if you want to get notifications every time we go live with the podcast. Bell. Yeah, ring the bell, as Steve says. And of course, thank you very much for all the donations tonight. And I need to thank Pulp Fiction. Thank you very much. He's just donated £20. That is amazing. Thank you very much for that. It really is appreciated. And like I say, guys, if you do enjoy it, keep coming back. We're here every Sunday night at 7 p.m. going live. But also the audio version is also available from the usual outlets from Monday morning. But all I need to do now is, actually, I need to remind you, next week is our best of the month, because it is the end of the month. So, you'll need to pay attention. It's good the end of the month because everybody else has to do the work at the end of the month and come up with their end favourites for their TV shows and albums and so on. So that's next week. But that's it for this week. My thanks to Ed Selly.
I may be a king, but I'm a wrestler first.
Steve Withers.
Rivers of blood can never bring peace.
And Kaz Harlow.
How long will this time of peace last?
If you enjoyed the podcast, then please give us a like and subscribe with the notification bell, as we've said. And don't forget, we do publish reviews and other things on our YouTube channel, so it's not just the live podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AV Forums for latest reviews and news. And, of course, on iTunes, if you enjoy the show, then give us a 5-star review, if you don't mind. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Phil Hinton. We'll see you again next week.